Well, hello class. Today I want to talk about the hiring of walk-on coaches in your forum. I read all your forums and they were very good. The first question asked, describe what an interviewer should and shouldn't ask and why. Well, what you want to ask are questions that are more open-ended than the canned questions that you're going to get a canned response. You're not going to learn anything from them. So you want to ask open-ended questions. And then again, you can't ask questions such as, how old are you? Are you married? Do you have kids? Things like that. But you can ask them, tell us a little bit about yourself. And when you ask that question, you're going to get that answer. You're going to find out a little bit more about them and what their beliefs are a little bit. It'll tell you a little bit about them. You want to make sure that you ask all the same questions of each of the candidates. You can't change them because that's illegal. And if you're in a public school setting, you're probably going to have on the panel there a representative from the union to make sure that all the questions are the same and that you didn't show preference over one or the other candidate. So you want to ask those type of questions. And the best questions to ask are open-ended. How would you handle a situation, for example? And that way you're going to get different answers. You might want to ask them to, what their strengths and weaknesses are, areas of improvement. You might learn a little bit about, how well they actually know themselves, and that's important. And that might differentiate between the candidates, because that's what you want to try to do. Because if you ask the same questions and they're closed-ended, oh boy, that's going to be tough to differentiate. You're going to get all the same answers. They're going to tell you what you want to hear. Now you're picking probably the person who just came off the best, and that's not necessarily the best candidate. Number two, how do the causes of stress and burnout differ from those of coaches and administrators? Well, being a coach and being an athletic director, I can answer both of those. And I think being a coach, they're more focused. You're worried about your team and how they're doing and how the perception is of you, and are we winning? That kind of thing, where you're really focused on only one thing, and so the stress is more localized. I think as a athletic director, I know for a fact I worry about all the programs. It's more of a global type thing, and not only the programs but the community, the district office, and a lot of other things. So the stresses are a little bit different. We both stress, and you have to find ways to cope with that. And I think the next question talks about the coping, ways of coping. Well, we're all physical educators, and most of us are, and are coaches and athletic trainers. We know how to reduce stress. It's with exercise. It's with having a life, getting away from it. And I think we have to find that work-life balance. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. They're too focused on just work. You've got a life. Go home, let it go. That was one of the things I learned early on as a young coach. I had to let it go when I went home. I couldn't take it home with me. Otherwise, it'll kill you. So let it go. Get a life. Aside from coaching, aside from being an athletic administrator, you have kids, you have a family. Let it go. Put parentheses around your work. Don't let it come to your home all the time. I know there are times where we have to, but balance it. And then the next question had to do with the Rialto rule, and that's a very difficult rule. I grant you that. When I first dealt with this several years ago, we were looking into hiring a walk-on coach. When I first read this rule, I thought, no, you can't. You can't hire a walk-on coach over a certificated teacher. But then the more I read it, the more I realized, yeah, you can, and we did, and we have in the past. And the only time we would use or do that, hire a walk-on over an on-campus coach, is if we didn't have a good candidate on campus. You might have somebody that knows the game and X's and O's, but maybe they can't do a good job with the kids. Maybe there's something in the interview that you didn't like. It just wasn't good. And so you've got another guy that's a walk-on that fills, all the criteria, and you want to hire him, you can do that. The key is you just have to offer it first to certificated. And if you don't like what the candidates you have, then you can open it up to the outside. But you also have to have backing from your HR department, because they could file a grievance and force you to hire them. But your HR department has to be willing to back you. And if they are, great. And if they're not, then, well, you might be forced to hire that on-campus coach with less experience, or maybe somebody who's just not going to do the job that you think you want. So you can. Now, in the second scenario, the first one with Dan Marino, that was, you got a professional athlete over a certificated. You can do that. We've done that in the past. Didn't work out. I'll be honest with you, it just didn't. He was a professional basketball player, and he played Division I at a local school I won't name, but he just wasn't able to communicate well with the kids. He didn't go to school for this, and that's half the battle. You have to be able to communicate your knowledge to kids, and if you can't, then it's not going to do you any good. If you're the smartest guy in the world in a sport, or smartest girl in the world, you're not going to be successful. Now, the second one with the baseball coach not being able to be on your campus at a certain time, you got two guys that are pretty much equal, but one can't be there. He's at another school, and he can't be where you need him. You can hire that walk-on in that situation without too much of a problem. But again, you're going to need your HR to back you on that. So, I hope I answered some of these questions. You guys did a good job. It's a confusing rule on the Rialto rule, but most of you, got it. You did a good job. Some said no, and that's, hey, that's what I did the first time too. So, that's how we learn. Anyway, good job, and I'll be talking to you, and have a great day, and God bless all of you.